every day consisted of the same cycle. And as days and nights passed, all I could think about was a stubborn clock that didn't seem to move. And the only feeling I felt was of something missing. Somehow, I felt like it continuously had missed opportunities. And no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't fill this gap within myself. And it was like a missing puzzle piece that no matter where I looked, or for how long I looked for it, I couldn't find. And I tried to fill this gap, this boredom, with anything and everything. In middle school, I did Monday and Wednesday sports, peer ambassadors on Tuesdays, even tennis club on Thursdays. But instead, this led to more gaps. It was almost as if I was using a puzzle from a different box that only resembled the piece that I was missing. So no piece could fill my void. And looking back, I think I realized why even after putting myself into all these activities, why I still felt bored, per se. I think it's because these were safe activities to me, being a small part of something bigger. My participation didn't mean much, I thought, and this gave me an excuse to almost be invisible within each activity. And I became so incredibly bored. And I found more and more things wrong. And in fact, sometimes I created things that were wrong out of things that were perfectly fine. And I blamed the world for the illusions of problems that I created for myself. The following year, this school year, I threw myself into a pit of fire, figuratively. It was time for the council elections, and for some reason that made me just a bit more excited. An unexplainable type of excitement. Presidency and being a leader, it all seemed like such a great idea, but just the thought of running and actually doing it made me so incredibly nervous and feel so vulnerable that I suppressed this excitement that I felt. It seemed like a one-way ticket to hell, to utter and complete failure. So a week had passed, and I told myself I won't run, because I said I don't care about this position. But then 2 weeks had passed, and I tried to reassure myself that I really didn't care. But then came the week for the forms to be turned in. And that week, I surprised myself when I did take the form. But I had taken it because I wasn't going to submit it. It was bait, and resisting the bait would mean that I really didn't want to run. So later on, I remember that that week, I thought about every missed opportunity that I had and how bored I was on my constant cycle. And so on the third week, I decided to take the form. And though I didn't want to admit it, I wanted to break away from this constant cycle of boredom and feeling regret and of missed opportunities. And so hoping for the best, I turned in the form. And it was now Wednesday, the day of the elections. I remember the shirt I wore and my nerves concealed under that cover. I had a weird feeling because I was thrilled but extremely nervous. The NPR room felt almost daunting, but this feeling was soon overtaken by excitement when my friends and those who weren't even my friends congratulated me for my speech. And the day the results were announced, I wasn't in school. I think I had a fever, and that day while I was laying in bed, I remember my friends bombarding me with calls to congratulate me. This time, the congrats came to inform me that I had actually won. And it all seemed so surreal and almost utopian, and I could finally become responsible for something and be independent. And the very thought of that made me so incredibly happy. But that was until the first council meeting. Upon the first council meeting of what seemed to be a gathering of all the council members and the most elite council, the exec council, the first event, Class Colors, was introduced to us. And at the head of this table sat a very seemingly intelligent and organized leader, Sureen Riaz. And as she told us the agenda for this Class Colors event, I felt a huge pit in my stomach upon the realization that I needed to make shirts for the entire grade in 7 days. And with no prior experience of creating shirts, not knowing a single thing about business, and this being my first time at this position, I felt doom coming. And as I saw coming, doom had come, because 4 days prior to this event, I was notified that our original plan wasn't going to work. And I had no choice but to basically call my entire family tree to see if they could possibly know someone who does manufacturing. And I did manage to find someone, but after assurance from this vendor that everything was going to work out just fine, 2 days prior to the event, I was told by her that these shirts couldn't be made. And she said that the only option was to create bright blue shirts. And I was genuinely devastated because our mascot was a pink flamingo, and I was going to hand my grade some cheaply made blue shirts after creating so much excitement for this event. So the next day, upon frantic negotiations with the vendor, and basically the entire world upset at me and my council, we resorted to having white t-shirts. But there was another problem, because other than this time now stealing the senior secondary color, class colors was literally tomorrow, and they had only started making the shirts today. And I couldn't even guarantee that they wouldn't cancel last minute all over again. So that entire school day felt like a test. The low hopes I had for this event circled my head throughout the day, and I became more sorrowful by the hour. And I had messed up already, and I so profoundly wished I could just turn back time, undo today, undo the elections, and undo the start of the year. But turns out, God had other things planned for me. Somehow, our grade had won the first class colors. And after that, many barriers were thrown our way. And whether every little moment of success was sheer luck or actually the result of hard work, it made me come to a realization about a lot of things. 1, defeat is inevitable. So I'm still trying to come to terms with this, but I'm trying to realize that no matter how amazing someone is, they will have and have faced defeat. Their success is probably the result of having faced defeat. A Prime Minister of England, Winston Churchill, was defeated in every single political election until the age of 62. And the volleyball player, who's fascinatingly good at what their skill is, has only become this good after having faced defeat. And even my brother, who I'm pretty sure is in the audience right now, is so confident. But the reason to this confidence is the result of having rebounded from defeat. So, 2, patience is important. Yes, sometimes patience is unnerving, and it's stressful, and you feel as if you're stuck in an environment that will never get better. But in reality, it will get better. But then it'll become worse again. And then it'll become better. So until life stops, it's a constant repetition of both the good and the bad, with long or short intervals in between. But success will come, and it is important to embrace it when it does arrive. 3, I can't be perfect. So no matter how hard I try to reconstruct bits and pieces of myself all the time, I cannot ever be perfect. Because to even reach a level of work even close to perfection, I need to get past stages of many stages of trials and errors. 4, vulnerability is okay. So even after acknowledging all these things, it's hard to always live by them all the time. So you shouldn't feel as if you always must put up a strong front, always pressure yourself to always be working your hardest, and always be able to lift yourself up. That is an unrealistic expectation because we're all people, and everyone is allowed to feel sad at some point, to feel the emotions that come out of defeat or out of struggle. Everyone is allowed to tear, to face and come to terms with their feelings and not hide it in until it secretly consumes their entire state of mind and being. 5, living better. Essentially, the reason I'm up here today doing this TEDx speech is because after this new experience, I can say that I indeed am living better. Because the successes that came from having these responsibilities felt different from an A on a test. With obstacles and little moments of success, I feel as if I'm so much closer to knowing who I am fundamentally. I feel like less of a stranger to myself. And to be honest, school probably would have been easier if I hadn't taken on this role. But for the first time, trying to do something not for the sake of a perfect transcript meant so much more to me because I was able to figure out my true values. Because it's true what they say. Unless you're put into a tough or unfamiliar situation, you will never know what your true values and ethics are. And so I always juggle with what success really is. And when writing this talk, I tried to fit it into this one-for-all box. At times I defined success as winning, other times as happiness, and other times as the path to self-awareness that comes with finding success. But to me, I am finding success in finding success by pushing my boundaries to do those things that I was once scared to do. And to me, solely doing tests will not let me get a full picture of this complex world and of myself. And therefore, even if I were to excel in this one academic area, I wouldn't consider that genuine success for myself. But truly, I cannot define what such a powerful word means for you. I've told you my story of how I've made my way to creating this definition of success for myself. And I guess what I want to say is that regret is a strong emotion, and dwelling on regret feels even worse. So if it feels like a missed opportunity, maybe it's best to just do it. Don't distance yourself from it because you're scared of the villain in the story that is failure. Perhaps this time, this villain may beat you, but it will mean much more and be so much more complex than just failure. It will mean facing sadness, feeling ecstatic, or feeling overwhelmed. Allow these emotions to come and go, and naturally, slowly, things will fall into place for you. You will find yourself feeling more grounded and closer to discovering your most true self, closer to finding your own true and genuine success. Thank you.